The smell of roasted chicken and cinnamon filled the air, mingling with the sweet notes of Christmas carols playing softly in the background. The entire living room of our home was draped in warm golden lights. A glittering tree stood tall by the window, decorated with shiny ornaments and twinkling fairy lights. It was picture perfect, exactly the kind of scene you'd see in a Christmas commercial. But beneath that glittering surface was a tension so thick it could choke me. I sat on the corner of the couch, clutching a small, neatly wrapped package I had bought for my parents. It wasn't much, a framed photo of the family taken 2 years ago during a rare happy moment. I had spent my last savings on it, desperate to give them something meaningful. Across from me sat my younger sister, Kayamika, her legs elegantly crossed, her face glowing with anticipation. She was dressed in a designer red dress that shimmered under the lights. Even her hair had been freshly styled at an expensive salon earlier that day. My parents were bustling around, laughing, setting the table, and fussing over her every need. That had always been the way in our home, Kayamika, the golden child. I, Nkechi, was the forgotten one, the shadow that blended into the background. Growing up, I learned quickly that my place in the family was different. If Kayamika got a brand new toy, I received her old hand-me-down. If she was praised for a good grade, my achievements were barely acknowledged. I told myself I didn't care, that I'd be fine as long as we were a family. But over the years, those tiny wounds built up, like layers of rust on a fragile heart. And tonight, I had a sinking feeling that things were about to hit a breaking point. "Come on, everyone. It's time for presents," my mother sang, her voice high-pitched with excitement. She carried a massive red box wrapped in gold ribbon and placed it reverently in front of Kayamika. My father beamed. "Open it, my princess." Kayamika's eyes sparkled as she tore the wrapping paper. When she pulled out a $4,300 Gucci handbag, my heart stopped. The living room erupted in cheers and laughter. My mother clapped her hands, while my father took pictures on his phone like a proud paparazzo. "It's the limited edition one you wanted," my mother said, hugging her tightly. "Daddy, Mommy, this is perfect." Kayamika squealed, holding the bag up like a trophy. "You guys are the best." I forced a smile, though my chest burned with a mix of hurt and disbelief. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the couch. That was when my father turned to me, almost as an afterthought. "Ah, Nkechi, we didn't forget you." He reached into his pocket and handed me a small envelope. Inside was a Christmas card, plain and cheap, with a price tag still stuck on the back. $2. "Merry Christmas, my daughter," my father said casually. "May God bless you." My throat went dry. I opened my mouth to say something, but the words died before they could escape. Kayamika barely looked at me. She was too busy taking selfies with her new designer bag. The room spun around me. My ears rang as if someone had struck a loud gong. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the bag. It was about what it represented, that in my parents' eyes, I was worth almost nothing. I felt like screaming, like running out of the house and never looking back. But instead, I swallowed my pain like I always did and whispered, "Thank you." Dinner was served, and the table overflowed with food, turkey, fried rice, salads, sparkling juice. My parents laughed with Kayamika, bragging about how successful she was, how beautiful she looked, how proud they were of her. I sat quietly, barely tasting the food on my plate. As the night dragged on, old memories resurfaced, each one cutting deeper than the last. I remembered my 16th birthday when Kayamika had been gifted a brand new iPhone, while I received a worn-out pair of shoes. I remembered the time I graduated top of my class in university, and my parents didn't bother to attend the ceremony because they were busy preparing for Kayamika's beauty pageant. And I remembered all the times I had cried alone, wondering why my very existence seemed to be an inconvenience to them. When the evening finally ended, I escaped to my room. As I sat on my bed, staring at the cheap card in my hands, the anger I had buried for years began to boil over. Why was I always the one left behind? Why did they treat me like I was invisible while worshipping Kayamika? Tears blurred my vision as I whispered to myself, I can't keep living like this. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and swollen eyes. Kayamika was already downstairs, showing off her new bag on Instagram Live. Her followers flooded the screen with compliments and heart emojis, calling her goals and the luckiest girl ever. I wanted to scream at them. If only they knew the truth, the cracks beneath our perfect family facade. But something inside me shifted that morning. For years, I had been silent. I had played the role of the dutiful, overlooked daughter. No more. As I dressed, my reflection in the mirror startled me. My face was hardened, my eyes sharp with determination. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew one thing, I was done being invisible. Later that day, my parents invited extended family and neighbors over for a Christmas lunch. The house was filled with laughter and chatter. Everyone gushed over Kayamika and her Gucci bag. She basked in the attention, preening like a peacock. When my father proudly told the story of how much he had spent on the bag, something inside me snapped. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I took a deep breath, my voice trembling but clear. Do you all want to know what I got for Christmas? I asked, holding up the flimsy card for everyone to see. My parents shifted uncomfortably. Nkechi, my mother said quickly, forcing a smile. Sit down, please. Don't cause a scene. But I didn't sit down. No, Mama. I've been silent my whole life, and I'm done. This, I waved the card, is what I'm worth to them. $2. Meanwhile, my sister gets a Gucci bag worth thousands. Gasps echoed around the room. My aunts and uncles looked at each other, whispering. Kayamika's face turned pale. Nkechi, stop embarrassing us, she hissed. I laughed bitterly. Embarrassing us? Do you know what's embarrassing, Kayamika? Growing up in a house where your own parents treat you like a stranger. Where you're constantly reminded that you'll never be good enough. My father slammed his fist on the table. Enough! You're ungrateful, Nkechi. You've always been jealous of your sister's success. Jealous? My voice cracked as tears welled up. I never wanted your money or fancy gifts. All I ever wanted was to feel loved. To feel like I mattered. The room was silent again, the tension so heavy it felt like it might crush us all. For a moment, my father looked taken aback, almost guilty. But then he hardened his expression. You've ruined Christmas, he said coldly. I stared at him, my chest heaving. No, Daddy, I whispered. Christmas was ruined a long time ago. And with that, I turned and walked out of the house, leaving everyone stunned. As I stepped into the cold night air, a strange sense of freedom washed over me. For the first time in my life, I had spoken my truth. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. My family's perfect image was crumbling, and the fallout would be far from simple. Because sometimes, the greatest battles aren't fought with fists or weapons, they're fought with truth. And I was finally ready to fight. The sun had barely risen when I returned to the house to gather my things. My plan was simple: pack up, leave, and never come back. The moment I stepped through the door, the house felt different. The warm Christmas glow was gone. The air was heavy and cold, like the storm that follows a wildfire. My parents sat in the living room, stone-faced. Kayamika was curled up on the couch, her Gucci bag beside her like a prized possession. Nkechi, my mother started, her voice sharp and clipped, we need to talk. I set my jaw. There's nothing left to say. My father rose to his feet, his voice booming. You embarrassed this family in front of everyone yesterday. Do you have any idea how shameful that was? Shameful. That word again. It was always about appearances, never about feelings. I laughed bitterly. The only shame here is how you've treated me my entire life. Kayamika finally spoke, her voice dripping with disdain. You're just jealous, Nkechi. You've always been jealous of me. I worked hard to get where I am, and you can't stand it. Worked hard? My voice trembled with anger. Do you even hear yourself? Everything was handed to you. The best schools, the best clothes, the best opportunities, all paid for by them while I scraped by on nothing. And still, I tried to love you. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, uncertainty, maybe even guilt, but it was gone as quickly as it came. My mother stood and pointed toward the door. If you cannot respect this family, then leave. Go and live your life the way you want. I stared at her, the final piece of my heart breaking. That's exactly what I planned to do. I packed my small bag quietly, tears streaming down my face. My room was almost empty, there had never been much to begin with. Just a bed, a cracked mirror, and a few second-hand clothes. Before leaving, I slipped the family photo I had given them as a gift into my bag. They hadn't even bothered to unwrap it last night. As I walked out the door, my father's cold voice followed me. Don't come back here begging when life becomes too hard. I didn't look back. The days that followed were difficult. I moved into a tiny room I rented with what little money I had saved. I worked long hours at a local bakery, my hands aching from kneading dough and serving customers. But for the first time, I felt a strange sense of peace. There was pain, yes, but also freedom. I poured my energy into building myself up. I took online courses at night, determined to gain skills that could help me secure a better future. Each small victory, each new thing I learned, was a step toward independence. Weeks passed, and I stayed away from my family. Then one evening, I got a call from my Aunt Ifeoma, one of the few relatives who had always treated me kindly. Nkechi, my dear, she said softly, there's trouble at home. Your parents are arguing constantly. Kayamika is depressed. People are talking about what happened on Christmas. They all see the truth now. My chest tightened. Why are you telling me this, Auntie? Because, she sighed, sometimes speaking the truth is painful, but it opens wounds that need to heal. They're realizing what they've done. I sat in silence, unsure of how to respond. Part of me longed for reconciliation. Another part feared being hurt all over again. A week later, I received a message from my mother. Just 4 words, please, come back home. My hands trembled as I read it. I didn't know if I could ever truly go back, but maybe, just maybe, there was hope for change. I stood outside the family house, my heart pounding like a drum. It had been over 2 months since I walked out on Christmas night, and now here I was, clutching my bag, staring at the front door. The place looked the same, bright curtains fluttering in the window, the familiar scent of jollof rice wafting through the air, but everything felt different. The house that once suffocated me now felt like a battlefield, and I was about to face my opponents. I hesitated, debating whether to turn around and leave. But deep inside, I knew I had to face them, not for them, but for myself. When I finally stepped inside, silence greeted me. My parents were seated on the couch, looking smaller, older somehow. Kayamika sat beside them, her once glittering demeanor now dulled. Her hair was messy, and her eyes were red, as if she'd been crying. The Gucci bag that caused so much chaos lay discarded on the floor like a forgotten relic. My mother stood first, tears welling up. Nkechi, she said, her voice breaking. My daughter, I'm sorry. I froze. I had never heard those words from her before. She reached for my hands, but I stepped back slightly, still guarded. We were wrong, she continued, sobbing. Your father and I, we favored Kayamika too much. We didn't realize how deeply we were hurting you. It wasn't until you left that we saw the emptiness in this house. My father cleared his throat, his usual stern voice trembling. I thought I was being a good father by giving Kayamika everything, by preparing her for the world. I didn't see that I was crushing you in the process. I'm ashamed. The word ashamed hung in the air like smoke. Kayamika shifted uncomfortably, then stood up slowly. She looked at me, her face streaked with tears. I used to think you were just jealous, Nkechi, she admitted quietly. But now I see how blind I was. When you left, I realized that all my fancy things meant nothing without my sister. Her voice cracked as she whispered, I'm sorry too. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I had dreamed of this, of them finally acknowledging my pain, but now that it was happening, I didn't know what to feel. I sank into a chair, burying my face in my hands. Years of hurt, neglect, and longing came rushing out like a flood. Do you have any idea what it felt like? I sobbed. To grow up thinking I was invisible? To wonder why I wasn't enough for my own family? My mother knelt beside me, clutching my hands tightly. You are more than enough, she said through tears. We see it now. Please, give us another chance. We sat there for hours, talking through our pain. It wasn't easy. The wounds ran deep, and trust couldn't be rebuilt in a single afternoon. When I finally stood to leave, my father tried to hand me an envelope with money inside. I shook my head. I don't want gifts, I said firmly. I just want respect. I want to be treated like a daughter, not an afterthought. They nodded, understanding at last. Outside, the evening sky was painted with hues of orange and gold. As I walked away, my heart felt lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because I had finally spoken my truth and been heard. I realized then that family isn't defined by money, gifts, or appearances. It's defined by love, accountability, and the courage to change. That Christmas, they gave my sister a Gucci bag and gave me a cheap card. But in the end, I gave myself something far more valuable, my voice. And that, I knew, would never lose its worth. Love isn't measured by the price of a gift but by the sincerity of our actions. When we speak our truth, even the deepest wounds can begin to heal.